just want this person to be able to get their own social and emotional goals met safely and within the comfort zone of that person. Because quite often, well-meaning people can feel sorry for an autistic person for not having very many friends, not knowing that that autistic person is feeling sorry for the non-autistic person having to put up with all these idiots in their life. It kind of works both ways, but it's important that this lovely empathy that some of you feel is not misplaced, that having lots of social interaction is not necessarily the best thing for the person in your care, and we have to make sure that the well-being, the quality of life, the happiness, the social expectations belong to the person that we're dealing with, not your well-meaning feeling that more is better, more interaction, more people, whatever is better, because it's not. Sometimes we might need to really break this down for some autistic people to understand and be able to make an informed choice as to whether a friendship or a relationship, actually, when you've got all of the information, is this going to enlighten my life, or actually is it just going to be a massive hassle, because it's not as obvious as you might think it is, as it is for the non-autistic population.
That just no matter what school you're in, it's really social and political, and I've had a hard time dealing with some of that also.
Okay, can you expand on that a little bit? So you mentioned your jobs have really focused on education, on teaching, so it sounds like you have this tremendous command over the language piece, so you're an excellent teacher because you know the language so well, you know the content so well. However, the social piece has been the challenge for you with work, is that correct?
Right, like getting along with mostly the boss and coworkers, understanding what, you know, they're looking for me to do. Sometimes that's been a hard thing for me. I usually, you know, like you said, I have a good command of my subject. I know what I'm doing. Most of the time the kids like me, but I have a hard time with, you know, the social piece of it.
Sometimes some autistic people just massively struggle with the kind of obviousness that a lot of people find around relationship.
And I have to emphasize it, it's not just teaching, it's most of the jobs that I've been in. It's not that I don't have the ability to do the job, because I definitely do. You look at my resume and you're like, wow, she's qualified to do this. I think I come across reasonably well to most people most of the time, but I struggle with the social piece. I struggle with I just really struggle with the social skills.
Message that a lot of people get, or most of us get, as we grow up, is that people are a good thing. And that's the message we get. Being with people is a good thing, it's healthy, it's good for us, it's a nice thing. And the more people you can get, the better it is. It makes you look like you're socially acceptable, it makes you look like you're popular. It clearly means I'm a good person if I'm surrounded by lots of people. That's the kind of typical general view. It's on the social media, it's on the TV. Everywhere you look, everybody's running around in bars, drinking Baileys and having a whale of a time with very attractive, beautiful people. We know that the reality of that is not that simple, and certainly if you're autistic, it's not that simple, that more is necessarily a better thing. Somebody's interested in you, you need to know that they want to talk to you, or that they're bored stiff, or that they hate the sight of you. It's important that you recognise those basic early signals. You are expected in any kind of friendship or relationship to share something. I'm sure some of you can already start to see some problems here for the autistic person. In order to have a friend or a partner, you are going to have to share something, or not several different things. So that's stressful, that's difficult, for lots of reasons. Maybe sensory reasons, maybe social reasons, maybe just capacity reasons.
Is there one particular social skill that you could tell our audience that is really challenging for you? For example, I know some individuals with Asperger's syndrome who may have a hard time talking about different topics. I know some individuals with Asperger's who may have a hard time with nonverbal. Obviously, you have tremendous eye contact. We've chatted a couple of times by phone and in person. You have great social skills from the conversational standpoint. You're able to talk about a lot of different topics. Is there any one thing that you find really challenging?
sometimes I don't even know where I go wrong with people, and that's frustrating. But I've been told by some of the people that I've tried to get to help me with this, I've been told that, and I've tried to work on the fact that I don't deal real well with nonverbals. Sometimes I won't know when to end a conversation or when to leave, and stuff like that. And as a result, people tend to kind of ignore me or shy away from me.
That we were talking about a couple of different things, and those nonverbal cues were not picked up on, and we were talking about that, so I've seen that. Okay, so that's a great example of how perhaps those social skills have been a challenge for you in the workplace, how that would transfer to the workplace. Okay.
I mean, it's something that I'm working on, but it's not easy for me, and I pretty much stay frustrated.
Interest in another person, spending time with another person, learning about them, something more than just a functional business-like relationship. You're going to have to put some emotional capital into this in order to invest in this person and for them to feel valued, to want to spend their time with you. Some kind of emotional support, some kind of intuition, some kind of empathic response to know what your friend or your partner wants, to mind read them, to intuitively understand that that person is feeling sad today or wants something from you without that person actively asking for that. Of empathy, that if somebody comes to you with a problem, often an autistic person might struggle with the idea of giving you a hug and going, oh, there, isn't that dreadful?
Feeling. And why do you do that? What am I supposed to do? Because I don't have a clue.
Oh, I like this one. How are you feeling? Why do I do that? I don't know. How are you feeling? I don't know. This actually perfectly describes an ASD characteristic. That is converting thought and emotion to speech. Why did you do that? I don't know. What are you feeling now? I don't know. And it's a difficulty converting thought and emotion to speech. However, I have found that those with ASD can be incredibly eloquent in describing their thoughts and feelings by anything else than look at me and tell me. It can be send me an email. Write me a story. Find a piece of music that describes your thoughts and feelings. Elle attend que le monde change, elle attend que change les temps, elle attend que ce monde étrange se perde et que tournent les vents, inexorablement elle attend. Find a scene in Star Wars or Star Trek, your favourite movies, that describe your thoughts and
Caban.
You foul, loathsome, evil little cockroach!
Hermione's magical prowess and book smarts are obvious. She uses her good old-fashioned muggle skills to get the job done.
That felt good.
Not good. Brilliant.
Go to Google Images, type in what you think is the feeling, choose an image that represents the feeling.
So we use anything else but look at me and tell me. This is not being difficult, and the parents need to know it's a genuine difficulty converting thought and emotion to speech. Needs encouragement to give him processing time or an alternative means of communication than looking at me and put it in words.
So helpful.
You're likely to have to compromise. You're likely to have to do things that you don't want to do. All of this is highly problematic for an autistic person, and you can imagine why sometimes it's easier just to be by yourself, because all of this is just really, really hard going. And they go, oh no, I can't be bothered with that. And so there seems sometimes to be a real misunderstanding that if you want more friends, you have to look after them. They are like little babies in a nest or a car with a tank of petrol. You have to keep topping it up. You can't just have it, leave it there. It will rust and die.
What I would do and what I do when I don't know what a plant is or when I don't know the exact requirements, I research it. I go on the interweb and I look it up. And if I can't find that exact species, I kind of get the family. I get the family, the genus, and generally it's pretty much the same requirements. So do your research because that really does help and it just makes you a smarter plant person. So figure it out. Ask people. You can ask your plant friends on social media. You can go to a local plant center and they'll be sure to help you. But just knowledge is good. Knowledge is key. The more we know, the happier our plants are.
To do something about it, and it seems that that's quite a fundamental difficulty to remember, to be on the radar, to have the energy to continually contact people, just to kind of keep in there, just to say, hi, I care about you, I'm interested in you, that sort of thing. And it's very, very common with the people I meet that just go, oh gosh, I couldn't manage that.
What I heard you say a second ago is you don't always know what it is that you're doing incorrectly or what might be bothersome to others.
And I think that's one of the tricky aspects of Asperger's.
When you and I were chatting the other day, you told me, these are your words, I have performance gaps and deficits. And I found that such a profound statement. And one of the things you were talking about is this intensity or these strengths that you have, but then they're overshadowed. Can you talk about this phrase that you use, performance gaps and deficits?
I think that most, people with special needs in general have some kind of gaps. I mean, that's what gets them diagnosed. I have strong strengths, but they're often overshadowed by my weaker social skills. And so I may not get a chance to really show people what I'm capable of doing.
Okay. And I think that our society is so social that I could see that being true, that they don't get a chance to really get to know you and see those strengths because they see that social piece first and don't give you the opportunity.
Yeah, and that's very frustrating for me. I mean, I come across pretty well most of the time to most people. You wouldn't know unless I told you that I have Asperger's. Mm-hmm. Unless you're like an expert at it and you really know what you're looking for.
Right. And I think that's a really important point. I think that that's a really important point from the perspective of, we often call Asperger's a hidden disability. Again, you're very articulate, you're very well put together, you're well spoken, all of these tremendous strengths, but yet you require supports in some really critical areas.
Do you recommend getting a specially trained dog? What are the positives of a companion animal for somebody on the spectrum?
Do I recommend? Absolutely. It really does depend on matching two personalities. Dogs are usually better at this than cats, but I'll give you an illustration. We have our, what we call moving to manhood group for young teenagers with autism. And we were going through anger management and so on. And one of the guys said, yeah, when I'm feeling angry, my cat comes up to me. She moves in and out of my legs, and that soothes and calms me. I thought that was brilliant. And often the dog will have an ability, sometimes even better than a parent and the person with autism, to sense you're losing it. And it's then going through that process. But I would see as a companion and emotional support. And that companion accepts you, wants to be with you, is delighted with your company, and is everything that a good friend should be. So I would say yes.
Good morning, baby girl. Oh, we love you. Oh, we love you, baby girl. You go outside? You go outside, come on. All I wanna know, are you thinking about? Lemonade is doing awesome, you guys. She's settled in. She's happy. We are bonded.
Understanding the two-way nature of relationships. It's not all self-centric. It's about another person, their needs, their wants. They have to want to be with you as much as you want to be with them. And therefore, you've got to work out what you can offer them and why they should stick around. You've got to know that stuff. It's not just enough to say, well, I like you, therefore we're friends. That person has a choice too. And I think sometimes some autistic people struggle to make that leap to go, oh, okay, so what does that person want or need from this friendship, from this relationship? I have to pay attention to that, or that person will leave. Of course they will, because they're not going to be getting their needs met, whatever their needs are. So it's real nuts and bolts kind of stuff for this person to understand. So essentially, everything that's up there, it's autism. And yet those are things that an autistic person is expected to do if they want a neurotypical, non-autistic type relationship. None of those things are likely to be natural, intuitive, and ever infinitely available. There's likely to be some kind of capacity issues.
I found out about Asperger's, and I started reading as much as I could get my hands on about it.
You found out about it on your own then?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Keep going, I'm sorry.
I found out about it on my own and once I found out about it, I was like, wow, this makes a lot of sense for me. This is clicking. This is, this explains a lot of things that have happened in my life as far back as I can remember.
Preferences, particularly around children, might be lone play. certainly parallel play is absolutely wonderful. Even as an adult, I think often people say, oh, my kid, they wanted this friend round, and the friend came round, and the kid and the friend, they didn't speak to each other for 3 hours, and then when I said the kid had to go home, they both burst into tears. They didn't even know each other was there. They didn't say a word to each other. There's something about silent companionship that is so lovely, not to be alone, but not to have all of these demands of chatter, of compromise, of all of those kind of things. You do your colouring, I'll do my colouring, we'll just be together, but in this kind of silence. There is something really nice about it for some kids, and it's not less valuable than if they were physically interacting or communicatively interacting. But it's togetherness, but it doesn't need words. And I think if you are not an autistic person and you don't get that, it's just worth kind of bearing in mind that for some people it's enough. It's more than enough just to have a person, somebody with you. So I don't want to be alone, but I can't quite cope with all the demands of perhaps sort of typical kind of interaction. With people who like the same things as you. Those are very important things. They're more important than personality for a lot of people, because the idea of making friends based on personality, I've certainly met some autistic people that just find that a really bonkers and weird idea, that you would be friends with people who liked different things than you do. Really doesn't make any sense for some autistic people at all. Whereas I'm guessing that some of you here have friends that have completely different interests than you do, that you like them because of, I don't know, your values, your sense of humour, something or other. But for autistic people, often it's a lot more kind of pragmatic. If you're thinking about introducing people into groups and clubs and activities in order to enhance interaction, you've really got to think about the activity, because generally there's some kind of social component. And I found this as an adult. A few years ago, I took up kickboxing, because that's what you do when you're a 40-odd-year-old grandma. And what I discovered, because a small child told me, is that there's quite a large social component in kickboxing. There are quite a lot of autistic kids do martial arts, and it really suits them because it's very structured, it's very rule-based. The group that I went to, every single class, you had to find a partner. You had to continually, every exercise we did, you had to go and find a partner. And despite appearances and me talking to large groups of people, I am entirely incapable of standing in a room full of people and finding a partner. I just lurk by the side, hoping that somebody will come and find me, which they didn't. And so invariably I ended up with a 6-year-old. And you can't really practice kind of serious stuff with gusto on a 6-year-old. Even I know that. That was okay. So I was lurking at one side in this horrible, I loved kickboxing. I listened well, I observed well, I learned really quickly. I was good at kickboxing. I really listened better than most people do. And this child came up to me and he said, "Mom," because everybody's very respectful in kickboxing. He said, "You can't just stand there at the edge waiting for someone to come and be your partner. You've got to go out there and find your own partner." And when you've been taught social skills by a 9-year-old, it's time to leave. And that's genuinely what happened. And I never went back, because I just thought, this is just no good whatsoever. Again, the activity is what I want to do. I've been to French classes, I've been to other activities. There's always a social component, and I can't do it. It makes me exhausted. I'm not interested in it. It doesn't help me at all. I just want to go and do the centre, the thing in the centre. So we have to be kind of cautious when we start putting people into clubs, thinking about what that social component is. Is it a good one, or is it something that's actually going to make the interest completely unmanageable because it's too much, it's too social, there's too many kind of expectations. So time and time again that becomes very, very kind of difficult. some autistic people, the point of communicating with somebody is knowledge gathering, is information gathering, is needs meeting. The idea of just talking for the hell of it, for some people, what on earth would you be doing that for? You are just filling up my memory bank with crap, with spam. It's exhausting, it's pointless, there's no need for me to know this stuff.